what I use is instead of well, I use some of those clothes specs too, but the problem with that is you compress the layers only where the peg is, and then you can sometimes get a bulge on either side. So I use a thick soft cover book on a table, and the pages actually like drape over all the layers. It works really well. The problem with that is the moisture doesn't escape, so it stays wet for a lot longer. But if you're using a little bit of glue, then that works really well. You don't want the glue to come out of the layers and stick the thing you're folding to the book hook. So be careful of that. But weighting the layers like that is a good idea as well.
Back to a question we had much earlier. I think Todd asked about delamination being an issue, and I have that problem sometimes. Like these sheet papers don't glue together as well as others. I don't usually worry about it too much because once you get started folding a lot of models and you've got the creases in it, it won't come apart because you've already kind of folded it together.
And you can kind of re-glue the corners as you go if they start coming apart. I know some people use a little bit of PVA or entirely PVA to backcoat papers together, and I haven't tried that myself. Apparently it works, at least for some people. The PVA, once it's cured, it's not water soluble, so it's not going to dissolve and line up, so I'm not sure exactly the effect that has on the papers because I haven't done it myself, but it sure will prevent the paper from coming delaminated.
What's PVA?
It stands for polyvinyl acetate. It's a pretty common glue. It's the main ingredient in like Elmer's school glue. Some people call it white glue. It's used a lot in book binding as well. So you can find like book binding grade PVA as well, which is really nice. I know Brian Chan uses Elmer's school glue, and that's where yeah.
The one that says school on it?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And a little tiny paintbrush.
It's
Oh no,
crazy.
he buys his paintbrushes at Walmart.
Yes.
Like $5 for $1.
So this should be encouraging to all of you wondering about the level of equipment you need.
He's also a very trusting person because when he was a guest of honor here a couple of years ago, he showed up at 10:30. We were the only people around on Thursday night, and he needed paintbrushes, and so we gave him a ride to Walmart to buy some paintbrushes. Him not knowing us at all, just walking and being like, "Hey, does anybody have a paintbrush?" And yeah, but yeah, you don't have to have expensive or complex stuff.
I do want to comment on the quality of the glue though. Elmer's school glue, when it dries, it's kind of like milky and cloudy and like hard and brittle. Like if you have a little pool, it'll like snap in half if you bend it. If you get the nicer stuff, like anything labeled acid-free or like bookbinding PVA, when it dries, it'll dry completely clear. It'll have kind of a shiny surface to it, but it's also really pliable. It's kind of like I don't know the good analogy, but it's flexible. It's not going to break. It's stronger, and doesn't have that like milky, cloudy appearance to it. I think it also tends to be thicker and more tacky. Has a lot more like holding power than school glue does. It might be more toxic. I'm not sure. I think that's probably good. Don't eat your methyl cellulose either unless it's food grade. Yes.
So it's good to store in MC, the gel solution. Is it good to store it in plastic or glass or?
I don't think it matters too much.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't have like fat in it, which I think can kind of get infused into plastic. I don't think there's any side effects from it. I haven't noticed any. As far as long-term storage, some people have issues with their methyl cellulose kind of growing nasty stuff in it if it's like left out unrefrigerated for a long time. I haven't really had that issue with methyl cellulose. I just leave mine out at room temperature for a long time, and it doesn't really matter. Like I think that jar I have is like a year old, and it doesn't have anything nasty happening to it. Some people keep their methyl cellulose in the fridge just to avoid things growing in it. So experiment and see what works for you, or if you want to play it on the safe side, refrigerate it. But and I personally haven't had issues with it, but I do know other people have. So it might be the kind of FT you use. It might be the molecular weight of it. It might be the purity of it. It might be something in the water. You know. If you need the acrid water, it just has so much stuff in it that prevents anything from growing.
This is just a clarifying question.
Mhm.
The last 5 minutes when you're talking about, okay, so you pre-fold the paper dry and then you start to wet the paper again, just parts of it, as you're collapsing or whatever?
These are different kind of styles of wet folding in kind of different areas that we're talking about. What Beth was talking about with this really thick paper is kind of the style where you would start with the paper wet, and this is something that isn't going to take long to fold. It's fairly simple, relatively few layers, so it's suitable with really thick paper, and then you kind of fold it, it's wet the whole way. For something that's more complex and requires thinner paper, the wet folding is going to look a lot different. Because a thinner paper, if you start with it wet and start pre-creasing, it's going to dry out really quickly, and you're going to be re-wetting it a million times, and it's just not going to be very useful. So for something that's going to take a few hours to fold, you'll do all the main collapsing, get it very close to the final form, and then you can wet it from there. And a lot of the times you'll use glue as well.
Another point about that is, let's say there is something kind of in the middle from super complex to something with the Canson that you're shaping while it's wet. And if you've got a weight of a paper that you're folding that takes a crease well without being wet, the preference is to fold it dry. So a big part of, until you're getting to the shaping part, because when the paper's wet, you have a lot less room for error, because the paper starts kind of deforming and kind of crinkling, and then those crinkles show. So you have to be, if you look at somebody like Yang Din's work, if you aren't familiar with that, you should look it up. It's wet folded, but everything is so smooth. Somebody else who's not as experienced, it can come out really warped and wrinkled. So, but you have to fold that wet. So if you're folding something that's kind of a medium weight, but then you want to shape it while it's wet, if you can fold it dry, I think that's preferable, so you don't get those imperfections in it while you're folding, and then wait till you want to do the shaping you want to get it wet. Does that make sense? And I use some, like, let's see if I have an example here of something I've done, like this little monkey I have here. This is a thinner paper that I then use a little bit of water to get some shaping in it and have things kind of, like I can press these legs together. Instead of gluing them together, I can press them together and then they won't spread apart. But if I folded this while it was wet, the whole body would look wrinkled because the paper's thin. So I don't know if that's the best example. I didn't come prepared with an example like that. But
I differentiate between these two things by calling one wet folding and one wet finishing.
oh yeah, that's a great.
Wet folding is if I start with it wet and go through the whole process wet. That's wet folding. Wet finishing is if I am using water at the end to do my.
It's like the stuff David Brill does. He does wet fold.
Right, exactly.
He starts with thick paper, and wets it, and folds it.
Awesome.
Yes.
And I think the big difference too with that is that the one that you're wet folding, you really, it's hard to fold dry. You don't want to fold that paper dry because it cracks and it doesn't take a crease well.
Did that clarify things for you? Or?
Yeah, and one more.
Yeah.
When you're talking about PVA
PVA.
in the water, it's just very diluted, I'm assuming. Like,
Well, PVA will come in a liquid form. I mean, it's a really viscous liquid, but it's not going to come in a powder form. I don't know, maybe.
yeah, but do you dilute it?
No, I
You don't
think
use.
it's unresponsive.
You can dilute
You
it.
can. That's
Yeah.
how Brian does his stuff.
You could mix PVA and methyl cellulose solutions together, and you have to mix the crap out of them. I don't know if they ever truly kind of dissolve, but they do mix together enough to get a fairly uniform mixture.
How do you compensate for paper expansion when you're doing tissue foil, when you're making tissue foil?
Tissue
Tissue
foil.
foil
That's
or-
an interesting question.
And do you use methyl? I mean, do you guys make tissue
Methylcellulose is
foil?
worthless for tissue foil. I know
Okay.
that. It doesn't stick to the foil.
So
That
spray
is,
tissue
there are
foil.
people that do that though.
But only when they put thick paper on.
Yeah. Wait,
Yeah.
with methylcellulose?
Interesting.
I don't know why.
Because it gets
I don't know
enough
why.
soaks into the thick paper.
Because it's got no effect on the foil.
Yeah.
And
Well,
on
I'll
tissue paper,
typically
it's so
do
thin it
tissue
doesn't-
foil with spray
Right.
adhesive.
Try that.
Anna Kesselner swears by using like watered down PVA.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I've made tissue foil in the past with spray adhesive. I think it's a fairly traditional method. I think what I did to make sure that the tissue was like super even and no wrinkles is I would spread it out on some like big flat surface. You could probably use like a sheet of acrylic. I think it was some like big kind of like giant clipboard kind of thing that I had. But I would tape it down like in all the corners and all the sides and kind of stretch it taut just with masking tape. And then I think I would spray the foil and lay the foil down on the tissue paper. Or maybe I would spray the tissue, I don't remember. But the spray adhesive is gummy and thick enough that it doesn't really soak into the tissue paper. But that was the method I had to pretty much surefire have no wrinkles. And then to get the other side, if I wanted the other side coated, then I would just, remove that foil and then just do the same thing on the other side. Stretch the tissue out, spray, lay it down.
Or if you can get someone to help you. One person pulls in this direction on the four corners, and one person pulls in that direction on four corners, and go down and get it down.
Make sure you're not in a not closed environment. You have to have, if you're using spray adhesive,
Be in a ventilated area.
and it's because it's flammable also. Oh my gosh, I never had any of these things.
Yeah, Todd?
Just what sort of is there somewhere I go to know what sort of spray adhesives you work with? Because I tried it. I used it
3M,
once, though.
was it like Super 77 or something?
Okay.
Just like some general purpose spray adhesive.
You can get it at Home Depot.
Okay.
And that one is really good.
I'm gonna go ahead and suggest just not using tissue foil basically ever. It's really not good, and it teaches you habits that are not good about like being able to scrunch paper. And it usually doesn't look that great. The shininess of the foil shines through the tissue paper. The one thing that tissue foil is good for is when you're trying to do like stop motion stuff on video, and so you need it to be like just stuck in certain positions that are like have no tension or anything behind them. But other than that, like
So for your stop motion films.
yeah, if you're doing stop motion film of like how it's folding, that's pretty much the only
There are a few models that sort of require tissue foil. There's a model, Dragon in Flight, where the instructions basically say, okay, at this point, after you fold all this with your tissue foil, take a hammer and just wail on it to get it as thin as possible. Because even if you wet fold it, it's not going to be, it's still going to be too springy.
Yeah.
So there are a few models that
glue in between lots of layers.
Tissue foil is really good for compressing layers super tight, and it's really good for getting paper to hold its shape, but it wrinkles like hell, and it is really hard to
Photographs
reverse
awful.
creases.
May delaminate.
Delaminates.
Yeah.
Tell us how you really feel.
it's the best paper ever, and you should use it for everything.
Yeah.
And then once you do that, you'll realize that it's not that great, and you'll not use it ever
I
again.
think what we're really saying is tissue foil was so 90s. They used it a lot in the past, but
When you first try to use it, it's amazing.
Yeah.
You can flatten out a crease, and the crease is gone.
yeah.
You can't do that with any other paper.
The thing with tissue foil is, say you want to fold an orca, and you want a really nice shiny white. It's going to be really hard getting that with backcoating a black sheet of paper on white. So in that case, having a barrier between the two, in this case, foil. But apart from that,
Well, that's when you lay down a ton of MC at first, right? You get the shiny side.
yeah, well, I don't use this, but I've been fairly lucky with how I do black and white models without tissue paper. But
Yeah, you have really nice.
but you don't
contrast.
really need, like say an orca where you really want it like shiny white. I don't think you can get that with our technique here.
Okay. Yeah.
That's when you custom order from the maybe 2 or 3 people in the world who make paper. Because it's best when it's made off of the when it's made that way originally. That's the idea. That's what we're trying to do basically. Is fabricate that post production.
Okay, so I think we're about out of time here. So I don't know how well your paper is dry, but my recommendation is, wait for it to dry completely before you try peeling it off.
If it still feels cool to the touch, it's still too wet to peel. That's kind of my rule. So.
Yeah, but hopefully when this is dry for you guys, you'll have a nice new sheet of paper that you can fold with. Cut it square with whatever your preferred method is, and do some experimentation. Hopefully it'll be pretty fun.
And where do you get your paper there?
Just order it from Blick. What's here? Yeah.
Probably a really dumb thing, though. I've seen the
Phoenix. There's a. It might be Phoenix Art Supply.
Yeah, Origami is also has.
We have really beautiful modeled Origami paper up by the admin area. Take a look at that. It's great.
So let me say two things really quickly. First of all, if any of you know what Slack is, if you go to origamitalk.slack.com, there's basically an IRC discussion group where you can join and ask questions, and some of us are there and we'll answer them. So if you want to go there and join Slack, it's like IRC, but with and second of all, since it's lunchtime, if anybody wants to come up here and grab one of these and spend 5 minutes, I'll teach you how to fold a wet folded swan really quickly. What? It's fun.
I did it twice with towel and